What's up, guys? Welcome to the Build Show live edition. That's right, guys. We're talking high performance sealants. Thank you for tuning in. If you're watching this live, we got some great content for it. If you're watching this later, this is going to be a lot of fun. You won't have the Q&A, but everything else is going to be really good. So stay tuned. Hang on. We got an hour of great content for you. First off, let me show you who we got. Doug Cameron. Doug, thank you for joining me.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Doug's with ESS Design Build here in Austin, Texas. He's like 20 minutes away, so he came into the office for me. And Nathan had a bit of a longer commute, though. Nathan is with Sashco. He is a chemist by background and now works in the kind of marketing and sales department. So I'm really excited about having Nathan because I love to nerd out on the very specifics. I know, Doug, you're in the same boat. Doug was reading MSDS data sheets last night to get prepped for today.
So we're supposed to tell everybody, man.
So we are going to absolutely pull it out of you today, Nathan, to really find out all the nitty-gritty that we need to know as builders to choose and use a really high-performance sealant. With that being said, today's Build Show Live, let's get going. Full disclosure, we're going to talk through a lot of the Sashco line. You know, when we do these webinars and live events, we're trying to be a little bit brand agnostic, and we're kind of doing the opposite of that today on my call. I fell into Big Stretch as a brand about 17 years ago now, and I've absolutely loved it. And I had no idea that Sashco made it. I just knew it was Big Stretch, and it was at that time a little bit hard to find. You had to go to a kind of a select hardware store in Austin to get it. None of the big boxes had it. But I knew that this tube of caulk, which at the time was maybe $6 or $7, was much, much better than the other ones. It moved, it stretched, I never got callbacks. Fast forward a couple years and I realized this same company has a bunch of different products. And one of the things I really like about Sashco, unlike a lot of their competitors, is that they do not have the good, better, best. You know, if you go to the home center and you look at another brand, you oftentimes see in the same category, let's say a window and door or a painter's caulk category, you might see a $3, a $6, and a $9 tube, all from the same company. It can get honestly a little confusing. And my backstory was 10, 15 years ago, I had a problem on a job site with a failure, and it was an adhesive failure, not one of these products. And I realized that my guys were using the cheapest product available. And so I did a bunch of research, I did a bunch of videos, I did a bunch of pull tests on that, and realized that the ingredients matter. And when you buy a less expensive product, there's trade-offs and there's reasons why it's less expensive. So with that being said, Nathan, I want to jump first into the science of some of these and what goes into it. And very early on, I was alerted by someone that Big Stretch, for instance, and some of the other competitors that are, this is really a window and door and trim caulk. It's multi-purpose. When you buy a tube that's, you know, maybe $7, $8 like this, compared to a tube that's a couple dollars, $2 or $3, Nathan, I'd always heard that the acrylic in here, this is an acrylic latex product, the acrylic is the expensive part, and that's, you know, some version of this amount of the top of the tube. And then a good portion of the tube, I've heard, is clay or some kind of filler, just like it's mined from the earth. Help me to understand that more from a really, you actually know what's under the covers.
Sure. So we can actually break it down on one of the slides here. If we jump ahead, there's basically, call it 4 components that make up a sealant, right? So what you talked about first, the acrylic, is the resin. This is basically the sticky stuff, right? Okay. You need something that gives you adhesion so it'll stick to the surface. You can think of this kind of like tree sap, right? Tree sap is really sticky, but if you were trying to put tree sap on a joint, it would be terrible, right? So you need some sort of carrier, right? Some sort of solvent to thin it down and help make the application smooth, right? Then you've got your pigment. This is where you get your color, right? This is also where you can get the filler, right? So on a cheaper painter's caulk, you're gonna have a lot of that, which is gonna mess with some of your properties, right? So some of the high performance properties that make something durable. In a high performance product, you still may have pigment, and in a clear, you're basically not gonna have any, right? And then you've got a whole bunch of other stuff, right? So this could be an adhesion promoter to help you stick to plastic. It could be a dispersant to help us manufacture the rest of this stuff. It could be dryers to help you, with your cure time. And when you understand how these kind of play together, you can kind of predict performance, right? So your resin gives you most of your properties, right? So this is your acrylic, your copolymer, your silicone, your urethane, yada, yada, yada. And this is giving you your adhesion, it's giving you your stretch, it's giving you a lot of UV stability or lack thereof, right? Pigments are really just adding mostly color. They can hurt you when it comes to UV stability, right? So if you've got a cheaper pigment in there and the sun's hitting it and it's yellowing, that's going to hurt you. They can also help with toughness a little bit. That can be a good or a bad thing, right? And the example you were talking about, where you've got a lot of clay, that's probably a bad thing. It's probably overfilled. But I like to think about this kind of like a human body, right? If we didn't have any bones, if we were just muscle, we'd move and stretch all over the place, but maybe that wouldn't be a perfect thing, right? A little structure there
Some bones are good
can
for
be
you.
good, right? And so the resin combined with the pigment kind of gives you a little bit more of a network, a chemical network to provide a little bit of strength.
Got it.
Which can be a good thing. And then the solvent is helping give you that application, right? So it's easy to tool. It's also giving you a little bit better adhesion, and I think we'll talk about that in a second. One more thing to keep in mind here is that you do get shrinkage with solvents, right? So if you're using high solids product, when you lay a bead, if this is your joint and you've got a bead there, you're going to have a pretty flat 45, right? Whereas when you're using a lower solids product, it might be easier to apply, but it might shrink a little bit, and you'll have a little bit of concavity to the sealants.
Got it.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I want to interject one thing. I forgot to mention, by the way, as Nathan's talking and you've got questions, y'all, don't use the chat function, use the Q&A. I've got it on my iPhone here, so that as we get closer, we are going to leave some time for Q&A, because I suspect as Nathan's talking, there may be some questions coming up. I won't be monitoring those now, but go to the Q&A tab on your Zoom app so that we can answer those questions toward the end. Go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, so Nathan, final product-wise, what are you looking for in terms of combining all of these that equates to what you would call a high-performance sealant?
Sure. So there's a lot of properties that you could look for in a sealant, right? You could look for how it applies, how fast it dries. We like to pride ourselves on being the durable folks, right? And so that's kind of how I define high performance. So if we go to the next slide, this is kind of the components that we think of as making a durable sealant, right? So it's got to stick, it's got to be elastic, and it's got to relax. So this is probably the easiest one to understand, right? If it doesn't stick, that's probably not a good thing, right? You're going to get some peeling. And this is showing us kind of how that solvent helps wick into the surface, right? So everything, if you zoom in close enough, has a lot of texture to it, right? If you think about wood or concrete, it's easy to think of, but even glass or PVC has some texture to it. And so that solvent that we were talking about earlier can actually help wick into the surface and give you some really good cling to bump up your adhesion. So it's got to stick. But if it just sticks and your joint's moving on you, you can get other modes of failure, right? You can damage the substrate, you can have cracking. So it's got to be elastic, right? This is how much the sealant can move and then importantly go back, right? Because gum can move, but it doesn't go back, right?
Makes sense. Yep.
And yeah, Matt, this.
So you've got a couple beads of sealant here, and if you pull those and they go back, that's that elasticity, right?
That's right. So pull this first one. This is kind of a generic one.
So this is silicone, right?
It is.
Yep.
It is.
So it moves a little bit, but at some point it's going to pop,
It's gonna pop.
right? And that's silicone.
Try the other one.
Now this other one is moving a little bit too, but Oh gosh, I can go twice as far. Or a lot
Or
more
yeah,
than that.
further.
A lot further than twice as far.
That's right.
Will it eventually snap on me?
You can get it to snap. You'll have to stretch it to about 7 times the length that you started with.
Oh my gosh, yeah, look at that.
I got it to snap over in Rhode Island, but literally they had it like a finish line banner.
Is that right?
Running through it, and it was still hard. Yeah. And
Now-
it comes back together. Is
Yeah, I was
amazing
just gonna
thing. That's what
say.
tripped me out.
It kind of comes back to where it was, doesn't it?
That's right. So if you leave that alone, it will go back. And no joint is moving that fast, right?
Right.
Unless you've got
We
like
hope
an
not.
earthquake or something like that. It's going to be moving slowly as the
But it's
temperature's changing.
pulling back to its original shape.
That's right.
Interesting. Now, which product is this?
That's Lexo.
That's Lexo. Okay, which is in this clear tube right here.
That's right.
Now, let me ask you a follow-up question on these two before we move on to the next slide. What's the difference between the solvent or the carrier on these two products right here?
So we basically have 2 technologies, right? So big stretch, and then these other 4 have water as the carrier.
Yep, so
right?
Big Stretch, Clean Seal, Slab, and Moreflex all are water as the carrier.
That's right.
Okay.
And then those 2 are solvent-based.
And then Through the Roof and Lexel, these have a solvent base, like a mineral spirit would be considered a solvent, right?
That's right.
Okay, got it. So water cleanup over here, in other words.
That's right.
And then these two, you're going to need something else besides water to clean up.
Totally. Probably mineral spirits or, a citrus cleaner on your hands.
Yeah. That kind of, not flow chart, but like ingredient chart is helpful for me mentally, because then going back to my original statement, which is a $3 tube and a $7 tube, may have the exact same labeling. They say they have a 50-year warranty or some stupid thing like that, but they're 2 different products, and you have no idea when you just pull a tube off the shelf what the ingredients are.
That's true. It's very difficult to tell on the tube. You can look at an SDS to see the stuff we were talking about in the slide before. To see this type of data, you're typically going to go to the manufacturer website and look for a TDS, right? So if you find the product data sheet or the technical data sheet,
We're never doing that.
that'll have this. Fair. Well, but if you do it once,
True.
you never have to do it again.
True.
right?
But my point is, if you're watching this, there is a very big difference between a $7 tube and a $3 tube.
That's true.
Even though it says, painter's caulk or, some version of that. So you've told us some of the things that go into a higher quality sealant. Tell us about application. What are some of the common mistakes or best practices when it comes to these higher quality sealants?
I can do that. Can I talk about relaxation
Oh yeah, I forgot.
real quick
Yeah,
first?
for sure.
So the last component, which you kind of see here, and maybe I'll have you play with these strips again, is how relaxed the product is when it's stretching, right? So when you stretch this, you can see that one goes further, but keep that stretched. Is it kind of hard to hold, right? It's pulling back on you, right? Stretch this one.
It wants to flip off and hurt me.
Do you feel how that's relaxed?
Yeah, relaxed.
So that's kind of the hidden component, right? So we call this tensile strength when you're a chemist, right? And you want a product with low tensile strength, meaning it's not pulling back on you when the joint is moving. Because if it's pulling back, eventually what you're gonna get is the snap, right? You're gonna get that cracking. And so when you have that low tensile strength, it's really kind of the secret sauce. And it's kind of counterintuitive sometimes too, right? Because a lot of folks might think, I want something hard, because that feels satisfying, right?
Yeah.
When you go up and you feel like this is a durable house, right?
Yeah.
But from my perspective, the exact opposite is true, right? Something that has a lot more give, and it almost feels tacky, like it's still a little bit wet. It's not, right? But that actually creates less stress in your joint, such that you're not going to get failure when you've got movement in the joints.
All right, now answer my best practices and my mistakes question, because I know this is one that people are thinking of. I've never made any mistakes, nor made 1,000 videos about my mistakes.
Sure,
But
Sure.
I'm sure that we've all made mistakes in there.
totally. So, a couple concepts. So one is use a backer rod. We were using some backer rod on your house this morning.
Yep.
Let me quiz you guys. Do you know why to use a backer rod? There are 3 reasons.
Yeah, I've always heard that we want to use a backer rod so that we wouldn't. Here's a backer rod example. So for instance, this cock joint right here is going to adhere to the 2 surfaces that you're going to see on the front, but we don't want it to adhere to the back surface. And so backer rod, this happens to be a ridiculously large one, but backer rod is simply a way for that cock joint to not adhere to 3 sides and only to adhere to 2, so that now we can stretch no problem and not break. Is that true?
That's totally true, right? If you have adhesion on the back there, then when you've got movement in the front of the joint, then it's preventing the sealant from actually moving if you've got adhesion on that third side. So that's the most important reason.
I've got one. So I like to use it also because it is a huge material savings.
Totally.
Oh, that's a great point.
Yeah.
It's cheaper, right?
Yep. Yeah.
I'm all about that, right?
I mean, it can be
save
2 or
money.
3 times tubes. The tubes
If you
cheaper.
filled that gap with caulking, you'd use a tube of caulk per foot. But if the backer rod's in there, you can go 3 times as far.
And let me throw in too that backer rod can act as an insulator in certain circumstances as well, which is handy too.
That's right. Yeah. In a window installation, for instance.
Totally. It's also going to help kind of create the ideal joint design, right? So if you hold that up kind of so that we see the cross section of the joint, you see how it's kind of like an hourglass shape, right? It's a little thinner in the middle, meaning it can stretch easier in the middle, right? You don't have as much pull there. It's got more adhesion, more surface area for adhesion on the sides, and it also makes it so that when we have that shrinkage that we talked about before, right? You can see there's a little concavity, but it's not a ton of concavity, right? Whereas if you filled that whole joint in, it'd really be shrinking on you.
Yeah. It can move big time now.
Yeah.
I mean, would you literally make a 2-inch cock? I mean, you could. I see it on commercial projects all the time. 2-inch cock joint.
Yeah,
Bridges and tilt walls get them.
It's not super common, but we do see it.
But you could do it.
We do see it, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Let me give you another one, which is an application tip. Okay. So the solvent-based products are kind of notorious for being tougher to tool, okay, because they stick to everything.
Should we do a demo of this?
Yeah,
I like it.
Totally.
Okay.
They stick to your finger too, right?
Yep.
And so that can be, for someone who's not used to it, that can be pretty annoying.
Yep.
So there's a trick here, which is to use a little bit of clear window cleaner or some mineral spirits or some soapy water to help you run the bead.
Okay, so for instance, Lexel, which is a solvent-based caulking, if we were to caulk this joint, let's say on this countertop or the shower or something on the exterior, hopefully y'all can see this in the audience. One thing that's really cool about Lexel is it comes out really, really clear. Very, very clear product. So this would be a great choice for something that you don't want that cloudy, milky silicone. And to tool this, some people might lick their finger, dip it in water. You definitely don't want to dip your finger in mineral spirits because it's terrible for your skin. But I guess in theory you could have a nitrile glove on and dip it. But here's something I learned just recently. Any of the glass cleaners that are clear, and several of the ones that are the foaming variety are clear. I don't know why this is blacked out. I don't think they're going to sue us for showing their glass cleaner. All right, I'm taking this off. I don't care. Have the lawyers call me.
Okay.
This is invisible glass, which turns out it works. I think we're going to be all right. They're not. I'm saying I like invisible glass, Mr. Lawyer. What you'll do is you can spray it, and it forms like a little cloud, or a little. What am I trying to say? Not cloud, but like a little foaminess. Dip your finger in that, and now when I tool this, it doesn't stick to my finger as I tool it down. I made too fat of a joint. That's a better joint right there.
So now try a little bit without that.
Okay, so
just to
now I've got
feel.
just a dry finger. I'm just wiping it off. It's dry. Now if I was to grab that, look, it's grabbing all over my finger. And now I'm going to have to wipe this off. But that joint already looks terrible on that dry finger. Whereas if I have just a little bit of this glass cleaner on there, it tools without picking up on my finger. Now that picked up a little bit, but not nearly to the extent. Yeah, now it's not picking up at all. That's cool.
You're just gliding right over it. Right?
Now here's the deal. This is clear Lexel though. If I were to use the blue tinted glass cleaner, the blue tint could tint my caulking. So you want clear glass cleaner unless you're looking for a blue tinted caulk line.
Totally.
Right? Which maybe
Yeah.
there's some application for that.
I haven't seen it yet, but yeah.
But here's what Nathan taught me at my house this morning. We were actually using another product, which is water-based, which is Moreflex. This product is really cool because it looks totally like mortar when you gun it out and when it dries. They sell it in a bunch of different colors. I use gray on my house, and it looked just like mortar. And I had a place where my brick front was butting up to my hardy siding. And so I had kind of a jagged brick line, and I had hardy coming up to that brick, and I wanted to caulk that line. Moreflex is a great product for that because it looks like mortar, but it's going to not crack. It's going to move. However, I didn't realize that this glass cleaner trick works really darn well with the acrylic as well. So we used the glass cleaner. I tooled it with my hand with Moreflex, and it didn't stick to my hand. It tooled really nicely. Now I did need to re-wet my hand about every 8 inches or a foot of tooling because the product would come off, but it works really well for both acrylic and for solvent-based.
And you can spray the bead too if you're using the stuff out of the bottle, especially, right?
Yeah,
so
that's
that
right.
way you don't have to re-wet your finger every time. But that's
right.
a common technique.
Sorry, I'm grabbing something from behind the camera here.
You're good.
The other thing I want to mention on something that I've learned in the not too distant past, and I actually put this on Instagram today if you want to go see it, but if you use silicone in the past, you may have noticed that, number one, silicone doesn't dry clear, it kind of dries cloudy. But if you ever remove silicone and try and re-caulk it, you're going to notice that it does not stick very well. Silicone will not stick to itself, and if you've removed silicone from the surface, silicone has some oils in it. Oops, sorry, dude. Has some oils that wet into the surface and prevent other things from sticking to it as well, including some of your products. So if silicone has been used before, you want to use a caulk remover on that joint where the silicone was. This will get the oils, and there's a couple other versions of this caulk remover.
Yep.
There's several brands. This will get the oils out of the joint so that when you re-caulk it, which of course you could use silicone then again because you've cleaned the joint, but the better choice would be Lexel. And Lexel sticks to just about any surface. This is an incredibly sticky product, and they've got a really cool little demo from their trade show booth that shows that it sticks great to wood, concrete, tile, glass, aluminum, anything that's a relatively clean surface. You don't want a dirty surface, and you don't want the silicone oil still on the surface, so use that caulk cleaner.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident that once you go Lexel, you'll never go back. That was my experience. I mean,
Have you used it a lot?
I have, yeah, and I used to use the silicone all the time, and we were doing a lot of white-on-white stuff in bathrooms, and it didn't show up the silicone at first with that ambering, but over time it did, and it looked unsightly, and we ended up having to remove a bunch, and I learned that lesson the hard way. So
Yeah, and once you cut it out too, it's a pain to get it out, and then you got to use caulk remover too. Yeah, good point. What did we miss on that, or what did we? What could you add to that?
There's one more piece I want to give you, which is kind of predicting failure modes, which I think is kind of fun, right? So if
predicting failure
we can
modes.
pull up a slide here. Here it is. So this talks about how something is going to fail if you don't have one of the components, right? So this probably makes sense, right? But if you don't have adhesion and you don't have relaxation, you're going to get peeling, right? If you have really good adhesion, something that sticks really well, but you don't have elasticity and relaxation, you're going to get cracking, right? That's what we typically see. If you have adhesion and some relaxation, but no elasticity, you can actually get substrate failure. So this is where the sealant's actually performing too well.
Yeah, it pulls the substrate apart.
Yeah, exactly. So if it's on wood, it's pulling wood fibers, and now you got a bigger problem than just re-caulking a joint, right? This is the sweet spot, right? So hopefully this makes sense. Good adhesion, good elasticity, and a lot of give, right? Low tensile strength gives you a really durable product. But this is the one that's kind of interesting to me, right? If you don't have great adhesion, but you can stretch and you're relaxed when doing it, you might actually be okay, right? Because you're really not stressing this caulk all that much. So maybe you're not actually testing the adhesion too much, right? So how these play together is actually really, really important. So we try to keep in this spot, but something cool, right? If you've run into these before, try a different approach, and you might have some success.
So with that being said, everything that Sashco makes, except for your log home stuff, is on the table here.
That's
Will
right.
you take a minute, Nathan, and just kind of run through the products that you've got and tell us the applications for those? Because ultimately, I think people that are watching this really want to know, hey, I've got a job coming up where I'm doing this. What's the right product for it?
Sure. We try to make it easier for folks. We really only make one product for each application, because we try to make the best product for that application, right? Lexel might be the exception to that. So let's start with Lexel.
Okay, so the clear one.
This is kind of the Swiss Army knife, right? So this is built to be the one-size-fits-all. If you're not quite sure what to use, it's got everything, right? It's clear, it's paintable, it's repairable, it's going to stick to everything.
Unlike silicone.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
And it's repairable, meaning you could cut out some of this and recaulk over it and it would stick to itself.
That's right.
That's cool.
It's solvent-based, so you can use it below freezing, but we have people use it inside all the time, right?
Okay.
So kitchen and bath, right, where you really want that clarity, like the marble we did, or for glass. If you're going from glass to tile and you need adhesion on both, right? That's a tough joint. This is going to take care of you.
And you're not worried about it freezing overnight in your truck too, right? Because it's solvent-based rather than being, so if it's 10 degrees outside overnight, this is still going to be fine.
It'll be fine. I'd rather you keep it where it's warmer, just because you're gonna look like Popeye when you're done. It's actually built to gun out even that low, right? We've engineered it to do that, and it's probably going to be the easiest product that you can find to gun out at that low temperature.
Okay.
But it guns a whole lot easier if it's a little warmer.
So the Swiss Army knife, the go-to is Lexel. And then talk to me about Through the Roof, which has some properties of Lexel.
That's right. So it's a similar technology. We've built it to be a little bit thicker for you, right? So we're in Austin. How hot does it get on a roof here?
140 in the
Hot.
summer.
That's
150.
Right. So we build this to stand up to that, right? It's hard to be able to gun out at 0 and also live on a roof that's 150 degrees, right? And so this is the product that's engineered for that application, and it comes in a few more colors as well.
And thicker, so that, like, say, if you're doing a roof flashing where you need to run a bead of this up a vertical surface, it's not thin and run out. It's going to be a little thicker and have some body to hold.
That's right.
But it's basically the same technology as Lexel.
Yeah.
Meaning it's going to stick to just about everything up on your roof, right?
That's right.
The one caveat I would tell you, though, which I cornered Nathan on, and hopefully he doesn't remind me revealing the secret, is if you have a metal roof that's a painted metal roof, Kynar is kind of the Kleenex name for painted metal roofs, but that's a fluorinated something chemistry. I don't know all the nerd stuff.
You nailed it. You nailed it.
Did I? Okay.
Yeah.
There's not much that sticks to that. It's kind of like a Teflon pan in your kitchen. And so these will stick, but not as well as they will to all other things. And so you want to be really cautious about adhering really anything to your painted metal roof, because there's really not a great product that sticks to it, because it's made like Teflon to resist stickiness.
Yeah.
Did I say that correctly?
Yeah. If you're in that situation, I'd try a test patch to make sure you're happy with it.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I like it. All right, now start with, if you would, so these two are solvent-based. Start now with Big Stretch. This is the one that kind of got me started on Sashco a long time ago, and I realized, even as a young builder, this was worth paying the money for.
Sure.
And my understanding is this is an acrylic latex product, which has some familiar relations to these other products.
That's right. That's right. If we start here, it'll be easy to understand the rest. Right?
Okay.
So that is what that joint was made of that you were playing with earlier, right?
Yep.
So it's built for the
This guy.
high elongation, good adhesion, low tensile strength, right? Because that's where we start all of our products. It's really our windows, doors, and siding product. And then we have people use it for trim all the time, right?
Yeah.
For crown molding. Think of those joints where you get separation and it looks awful. This is designed for that, right? So it comes in 12 colors plus a clear. The clear, since it's water-based, starts a little cloudy, but it'll dry down clear for you.
And this is fully paintable, obviously, so you can use it on the outside and then paint your siding later.
Totally.
You can use it on the inside as a painter's caulk, but I would want to caution you on one thing. I've heard these guys talk in the past about no micro beads of caulking. If we have tight trim work in our houses, it's really excellent craftsmanship as we would think of it. If that moves and you have just a teeny bead of big stretch in there, there's not enough material to actually move and stretch. You know, one of the reasons why they use this demonstration on this 2-inch bead here is there's a lot of material there. This can move and stretch and do all kinds of things and go back. But if this was paper thin in a teeny little bit, it wouldn't take much to crack it. So think about that. Talk about that with your finish carpenters and your painters. I think that's worth a job site discussion to say, all right, whatever joints we're doing, how do we not put a micro bead of caulking on there? Because you will see that crack in the future if there's any movement. On the other hand, big stretch, it can move and take that elongation, but it needs a little bit of material to do that.
May I add something to that?
Please do.
So, with regards to caulking on the inside, especially if you have the great craftsmanship, as Matt's speaking about, what I've noticed over the years is that if it is a little bit of a tighter joint, if you'll go to the extra trouble and communicate with your painter to get as much caulking in there as possible, that will help you a lot. Oftentimes I've seen painters come by, caulk and knock it down, and they think they're done and they've moved on, but they haven't really shoved a bunch of caulking deep in there. And that's the big difference that I see with a lot of paint jobs where it starts cracking really rapidly.
Yeah, that's a really good point. This is a bit of a side note, but Doug and I are big believers in really good painters on the job. In fact, you used to own your own paint crew for a long time. I don't think you do right this moment. But one of the reasons why we do that is because paint is one of the final things the customers see. They really don't know framing. They don't know if the hangers are the correct hangers or whether the right nails or screws are used. But everyone can walk into a house and go, oh, this paint job doesn't look great, especially a house that's, let's say, 2 years old or 3 years old, that it's experienced a couple seasons and movement. So one of the things that I've done over the years is I've gone to basically cost plus on my painters, where I pay them a weekly rate, and then I also buy their materials. I pay for the bill from the material supplier, Benjamin Moore, who I've used a lot recently, so that I know exactly what paint I'm getting, and also know what caulking products are going into that job. And then the painter's not worried about, oh my gosh, you know, I've only got X dollars for this job. I better get the cheapest products to use, whether it's paint, whether it's caulking, whether it's tape, whatever, because I want to make the most money I can because I'm getting squeezed on this job. So I really like separating paint labor from paint material. Just a little tip for you.
I think that's going to distinguish the good builders and the good finish from the great builders and the great finishes. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a great one. All right, Nathan. Should we move on from big stretch?
Yeah, this was a perfect transition to exact color, right?
All right,
this is cool.
So this is basically big stretch with no pigment in it.
Okay.
You add your pigment. So we're talking about painting, and in this kit, we give you a couple fun things here, right? So you get your caulk cartridge,
and that's just like clear big stretch, basically, right?
Basically,
okay,
right? And we give you a plunger. So you actually take whatever paint you're using, you pull it in here, put it in the tube, give it a good shake, and then we make this pretty thin, right? Because if it was the normal thickness of a caulk, you'd never get a good shake on it, right? So we give you a thickener.
I'm picturing the Shake Weight commercial in my mind.
That's right, there you go. And you put that in, give it another good shake, and you'll get a perfect match to any water-based paint that you're using.
That's pretty cool. And they have a sample here of a couple of these, which is pretty cool. So for instance, red walls with red caulking, and you can see the caulk joint. Hopefully you can zoom in and see that tightly on there. They also could tint it with a metallic paint. So if you did a countertop or a metallic wall paint, you could tint it to match. And one other cool thing you could do is if you had a stain, let's say a stained cabinet, and instead of using clear, you could actually use that same stain, put it in your exact color, and have this kind of light brown tint to match your light brown cabinetry, let's say, if you were doing shaker doors. The other thing I could really see this being helpful for is, in my past life, when I was working for a production builder for about 6 months, I was the warranty manager, and I would come back to houses that were a year old and have to do all the paint and drywall touch-ups on those year-old houses. And one of the things we often saw was corner cracking. You know, in that wall of the bedroom, you'd see that drywall crack where the two walls came together. Sometimes it was truss uplift issues. Sometimes it was, just shrinkage of wet lumber. But we got a crack in that corner a lot. If that kid's bedroom was painted pink, instead of doing drywall, doing sanding in a kid's bedroom, coming back and painting it, what if we just took that exact color, mixed that up with the pink paint in that room, and put a fat bead of Big Stretch in light pink to match the kid's bedroom? We'd walk away, no mess, no vacuuming, no tarps, nothing, and the customer would be thrilled that it looked good and there was basically no touch-up to do. So that could be a really nice tool in your warranty tool case as a builder.
Totally.
All right, next up, let's go to Clean Seal, shall we?
Sure. So this is very similar to Big Stretch, except it has enzymes in it that break down oils. It's an anti-mold product, right?
Cool.
So there are anti-mold caulks out there, but every other product out there has product that kills the mold in it, right? Which helps you until you get it dirty, right? So as soon as you get the oils from your body, on the caulking in your shower, or you spill some food on the countertop, now the mold's just going to grow on the food, right? This doesn't actually have anything in it that kills mold, but when you spill that food on it, it basically breaks those oils down into a soap that just washes away.
How about that? That's cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
I caulked my master bathroom with this because I had a white, and this is white. And then I caulked my kitchen counters, which were also white. And so far, so good. I also liked how easily it was to gun. It felt like Big Stretch to me.
It should.
And I think it's kind of cool that all these products have a bit of a Big Stretch kind of heritage, or they're from that family. Let's go to Moreflex next, which I touched on briefly already. Nathan, tell me about Moreflex.
So imagine Big Stretch with texture to it, right?
Yep.
So there's sand in this product, and it comes in a few different flavors, basically for mortar or stucco repair, right? So this joint you're playing with, right? We've got a few bricks, and it looks like mortar in the joint.
It really does.
Right? But where you have cracked mortar and it's falling out, right? If you were to patch that with mortar, you'd have to mix up a batch. You get powder everywhere. You're cleaning buckets, you're cleaning trowels. And then at the end of the day, once you've patched it, it's probably just going to crack again, right? Because you've got stress in that joint. That's why it cracked. Forget all the mess. You just throw this in a caulk gun, tool it, and you're done, and it's going to outlast the mortar.
That's pretty cool. Now, we did it at my house, and I used gray to match, but I believe this comes in at several, 4, 5, 6 different colors to match different, more white, more gray mortars, things like that.
That's right.
Cream.
Or stuccos.
Or stuccos.
That's right. So
another place this would be really helpful, potentially, like I remember my old house, I had to repoint my chimney, which was above my roof, and my chimney cap that cracked, I was getting water intrusion. And instead of going up there with something that would really show up, or trying to repoint it with mortar, it would make a mess on my roof. I wish I would have known about Moreflex. That would have been perfect to retuck point my chimney and my cap.
That's one of the coolest spots for it.
Yeah, what I'm thinking about is the big gnarly control joints that you can get on some of these big brick houses, especially the production homes where it's really done super poorly.
It's a great point.
And it just looks like they do it a whole different color, and it's so obvious. I mean, it is hideous. Hideous.
You could literally cut that out and go back in with Moreflex and it would disappear.
Absolutely, 100%.
That's a great call.
Great location.
It's funny you say that. I had one of those in my old house, my old production builder house. It was pretty gnarly. All right, last one of your products, Slab. What is this guy?
So it's basically a Moreflex, but for concrete.
Okay.
Right? And so we've got it here. So it's built to match concrete. And so for driveways or sidewalks where you've got cracking, you can throw this in. Same benefit, right? Forget the batch.
Now, is this a self-leveling product, so it'll kind of even out with your concrete?
It's not. There are self-leveling products out there that you can get. There's 2 spots where those self-leveling products can get you into trouble. Maybe not, but if you've got stairs, right, so you've got a vertical, you're going up, the self-leveling will just fall out.
All right, you
of
got
the
a
joint.
concrete stoop like I
Right.
had on the East Coast in all my houses.
Right. Whereas you can run this up and then tool it and you're good.
Yep.
The other way is if you have this, right, you have some separation, right? The self-leveling product would still leave you with separation. You'd still have, something to trip on.
Yep.
It'd just be tighter. Whereas you can actually build a little bit of a bridge, if you will, between those levels with slab.
Yeah, that makes sense. I love it, man. Thanks for the product intros and all those. I like that your family's pretty small. You don't have a lot of products. And as a little side note, I think Sashco is a particularly cool company because they're family owned. They're not owned by a big giant corporation. The son of the founders runs the company today. His name's Les. He's a great guy. I've been on video with him before. Super nerdy. And the fact that they only have one product line speaks a lot to their family owned nature. They're not looking at Wall Street to say, every quarter we need bigger and better earnings. It's Les is the bottom line, the owner of the company. He makes great products. He's a big nerd. This is his baby, his kids, and he doesn't compromise. So every one of these you buy is really the best product you can get. And I think they're, frankly, a pretty good value, even though they're on the upper end of the price category.
They're kind of purposefully over-engineered to allow folks to be successful even when you don't use them quite
Perfectly
for what we had intended, right? Like we have folks fix kayaks with our products, and they seem pretty happy about it, even though that's not what we had in mind when we were designing them.
Right. Something really cool that I like about them is that when you use these caulking tubes, they don't drip out at the end when you're taking your hand off the trigger of the gun, and that's totally unique to this product from my experience, and it just really keeps your situation a lot cleaner. So I thought that was super cool.
Yeah. So we actually have a plunger that we designed specifically for that, right? So when you're pushing on this with the caulk gun, it does a couple things. It kind of sucks back to give you the no drip. It also kind of wipes the sides, right? So that you can really get all the product out there.
That's cool.
And you can see it pretty easily when you're using a clear cartridge, right?
Saves
that you got
product
it all
too
out.
over time.
Here's a little side note too. I don't know if you've noticed at the home center, but these are 10 point something ounces, 10.5 ounces if I'm reading that right. A lot of manufacturers have gone to smaller tubes and you don't realize that there's less product in there. These guys have stayed with the standard 10, and I appreciate that about you guys.
Yeah, that just didn't make sense to us, right? I mean, if you got 10% less product in there, you got to go up and down the ladder 10% more time, and the cost of the sealant isn't the main cost of your house, right? It's mainly labor, right? And doing the job, and then you got 10% more cartridges, to waste and all that sort of stuff. So we're not going to compromise on that.
For sure. Hey, let's switch gears. We're showing just a hair more than 15 minutes. I got a bunch of questions here, and I actually thought of a couple before we started. And I forgot to mention, by the way, when we build this up, we were going to have another panelist with us, Zach Detmore, who's a remodeling contractor, a carpenter, an amazing painter out of New Jersey. We were having some tech problems on our end, so I apologize to Zach and to you for Zach not being here. He's amazing, and he's over on Build Show Network with Doug and I and our other contributors. So go over to buildshownetwork.com, check out Zach's content, and you should definitely follow Zach on Instagram. It's at Detmore101. So sorry about that, Zach. I apologize for the tech. It was our issue, not Zach's. That being said, let's throw out a couple questions for you, Nathan. One of the things that I know builders are wondering is availability. These days supply chain sucks. What does that mean for you guys, and are these products actually available on the shelf?
So we're feeling it just like everyone is right now. I think our performance has been pretty awesome, right? So you can go into your hardware, your lumber store, your building materials warehouse, Lowe's. You can find these products out there. It takes the whole team to pull that off. So
I can imagine.
We have our R&D guys that we normally like to be developing new products that are sometimes looking for alternative raw materials and testing to make sure that we haven't compromised on anything, right? Because even if we swap something on our end, we want to deliver those durable, high-performance products. And then we all end up in production, right? So I'm in production. Les is filling tubes just on the floor like everybody else. So it's kind of cool, you know, with the family-owned company. So we're doing everything we can to keep it in stock, and I'm pretty sure you can find it.
That's pretty cool. All right, let me give you a quick what works best on question. So what works best on, for instance, a metal roof? What would you use on a metal roof?
So I'd use through the roof. Typically on a roof, you're gonna be seeing penetrations, right?
Mm-hmm.
So pipe jacks, skylights, vents, stuff like that. That's where you really want to address the issue. This product I kind of think of as like a scalpel, right? You know right where you're gonna have a problem. We also make it in larger quantities, right? So you can get this in a gallon.
Cool.
And there's a few uses for that. One of the main ones is repair, right? So tree falls down, you should probably be repairing the roof, but you can't get a crew out there for a little while, right? You can slap that on.
You could paint this on basically to do an emergency repair. And it'll stick to wet surfaces too, right?
It will.
Yeah.
That's one of the coolest things about it. So with our water-based technologies that we were talking about, damp is okay.
Mm-hmm.
With the solvent-based, it's going to actually displace the water, right? So you can have an active leak in your gutter, and
it'll stop it.
It'll stop it.
Does that apply to the Lexel as well?
It does.
Yeah,
it does.
These two are pretty darn similar.
As long as you're not putting it on
family.
ice, right? Because then you're just sticking to
Sure.
the ice. So you want to make sure there's no frost on the surface. But yeah.
So one of the main differences is this just more viscous, the through the roof, right?
Other way
more
around.
Viscosity.
This is a little less viscous. The
Okay, gotcha.
Lexel gun's a little easier,
Okay.
and this is a little thicker, so that you
Gotcha.
could use it on
Right.
more vertical applications and flashings. This also comes in a couple different colors too, right?
That's right. It comes in clear and black and white.
Okay,
Cool.
there you go. How about pre-painted siding? What would you use?
Pre-painted siding. I would probably tend to go with exact color,
Okay.
right? Because, for example, LP sends you touch-up paint.
Mm-hmm.
You can just throw that right in.
We prefer Hardy, but yeah, same thing.
Same thing. You can throw that in exact color,
Uh-huh.
and you'll get a perfect match.
Smart. So that Hardy touch-up that goes for your pre-painted Hardy, squeeze that into your exact color, you'd have a perfect match on caulking. It would be a perfect match.
Yeah.
But you also do have, how many color options on Big Stretch?
We've got 12.
So you
So
might
it's-
also
it's-
find a straight out of the box option that's pretty good too.
That's right.
Yeah, that makes sense. How about stained wood? What would you do with stained wood?
So two vastly different answers for that one. So again, I'd go exact color if you're doing cabinets, right? You showed that before.
Mm-hmm.
We also have a whole division of our company that's focused on log homes. So we do stains and we do chinking if there are builders out there doing log homes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, we have a whole system for those applications.
Love it. You guys own that industry, is my understanding, that you are the main guys in that industry.
We're pretty proud of what we've built there. It's a cool system,
Yeah.
right? And we do education like this for that too, where we'll bring folks in, and we've got multi-day courses where you're learning the technology
That's
there,
cool.
like you're learning it here. You get to blast, do some abrasive blasting. It's pretty sweet.
Awesome.
Cool.
What about wood and glass? What would you use from Sashco for wood or glass?
So probably depends. Since we're talking glass, I'm gonna go Lexel here. For wood, I'd usually probably tend to go Big Stretch, but glass, Lexel is gonna give you the clarity. It's gonna be tough to beat.
Got it. All right, let me go to a couple of your Q&As here on the Zoom. Again, if you want to throw one up, please do. We got about 11, 12 minutes. Tom Cross says, what is the minimum gap width where a backer rod should be used? So in other words, what is the minimum width? As you get wider, obviously you need a backer rod, but what's the minimum size you should use a backer rod on?
Probably 1/4 inch.
Okay, yeah. Funny enough, we were at my house this morning doing some of this for a video that we'll throw on Instagram the next day or two. And if you're using, for instance, Moreflex, which is similar to Big Stretch, you can get it to stick in that 1/4 inch gap without a backer rod, but to Doug's point, you can use a lot more material. So anytime you can fit a backer rod in, my suggestion would be to do it. And it's a great idea to have several different types of backer rods kind of on the job and ready to go. At my shop here, we keep a roll of 1/2, 1/4, 3/8, you know, down, not quite 1/8, but I don't know what somewhere 3/16-ish, just kind of ready to go. So if a project manager needs it, they can grab all 4 boxes and have them out on the job site. And it's so darn cheap, and it's a pain to go to the store to get it. You might as well get a box of each one.
Yeah. And a little tip on backer rod too, there's basically 2 flavors, right? There's closed cell and open cell.
Mm-hmm.
So the closed cell is going to give you better moisture resistance.
Yep.
The open cell is going to be a little softer. So if you've got a joint that's varying a lot in size,
Mm-hmm.
you can kind of compress it more and get it to fit in.
This
Whereas-
is closed cell, right?
That's right.
It's got
that's
that
right.
film on the top you can kind of see, whereas the open cell one looks a little bit more like this, where you can see the sponge structure, and it tends to be a little softer.
That's right.
This is just a closed cell that got cut in half for this demo.
Right.
And you can find both. And if you're in Austin, All Tex Supply, which is about 100 yards from my office, stocks every flavor and variety, and you can buy it by the foot. So they're a great resource. Let's see. Here's a good question. Joyce Alder says, on this clean seal, how long will those enzymes keep working?
That's an awesome question. They do not leach out like the products that normally kill the mold,
Mhm.
right? And so it's gonna last forever. It's pretty cool. They don't get used up, right? They're enzymes, so they just stick there forever. You don't want to paint this one, right? So all of our stuff is paintable. You could paint Clean Seal, but you've just basically turned it into Big Stretch, right?
Yeah.
And so you don't want to cover those enzymes, but yeah, it'll last for you.
That's remarkable technology.
It's pretty cool. It's
I like
pretty
it.
cool.
Here's a good one from anonymous attendee. They didn't want to say their name. On Morflex, can it be used for stucco cracking without flashing after painting? And maybe you can explain what that means. And if so, up to what size cracks?
So let's start with the easy one. We typically recommend our products for up to about 2 inches. We see folks go bigger than that, but you want to make sure that you don't have structural issues, right? Because
Right.
this is a sealant.
Not a structural,
It is not
not a failure structural method.
right. Exactly.
correction.
We don't build houses with this because your house would move a lot.
Right.
Right? What was the first part of that question? Without flashing?
Yeah, flashing is a term that people often use. They'll say, like, sometimes you'll see after you paint over a caulking that you can see where that caulk joint is because it flashes. And I always think of this as a solvent-based issue, where you kind of can tell the solvent is still kind of moving through the paint. I'm assuming that's what you're saying. And Morflex and basically everything on this other side of the table are acrylic and water-based. And I've used Big Stretch a ton. I haven't used the other products quite as much, but in almost 2 decades of using this, I've never had a failure with it. It's been a really, really good product. And I've used it inside and outside, and it's worked equally well. And I've kind of eliminated almost all my other caulkings on the job site because of this product.
That's what I use religiously as well.
That's my gold standard. So hopefully we answered that for you, Mr. Anonymous. Let's see. Another question that came up a second ago. Sorry, 2 seconds here. Bill Robinson. Bill, good to see you, dude. Thanks for putting this in. Bill, by the way, is the godfather of all things caulking. If you've ever read the Journal of Light Construction, an article on anything to do with caulk, Bill probably wrote it. Go check him out. Bandana or Banana Bill? Bandana Bill. He always has a bandana on his head. He's awesome. Great carpenter from New Orleans. Bill says, my concern with solvent-based sealants, meaning like Lexel, is how they may affect indoor air quality. As the carrier evaporates, there's a smell, and this can be a big problem with persons who are chemically sensitive. With the assumption that off-gassing will eventually diminish, how long would be an acceptable time? This is mainly for interiors. Exterior is not an issue.
Yeah, it's a good point. So when you're putting these down, you're getting a little bit of some naphtha and some toluene coming off of there,
Mhm.
right? And so you can smell it. It's a subjective answer for how bad is the smell, right? If you're putting down a silicone, it's going to smell like menthol or it's going to smell like vinegar. So you can get that kind of either way. It doesn't take long for the scent to go away. Typically, you don't put down a whole ton of caulking, right? You're just putting a very little bit down.
All right, you're
And
not using.
if you're using this inside, you're probably only using half a tube.
Right, you're not using 150 tubes of this in 1 hour to have all that mineral spirits or solvents or whatever spilling.
Yeah.
On the other hand, it flashes off pretty quick, right?
It does.
Is my understanding.
It does.
It's not off-gassing forever like your vinyl floors are.
In total, one tube of Lexel has about 120 grams of solvent that's going to evaporate, right? And so that's not much.
Yeah.
So you want to still have good practice with your air movement, right? Open the windows, put a fan up. But I don't think I've ever gotten a call where someone fainted like you might actually get if you're doing a urethane on a bathtub or something like that, and you don't open the windows.
Or in the old days when I used a lot of oil-based paints, you'd come into those houses without a respirator on them, and you'd feel it instantly.
Yeah.
It's not like that. We're not talking about that much.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. And by the way, this is paintable as well, which I think we mentioned, but I wanted to verify y'all knew because that is a big deal. This is we kind of answered this, but I'm going to throw this out as one of our last questions. Travis Schmidt says, do you have a solution like Lexel where we would have used maybe white silicone in the past?
White Lexel. Lexel also comes in white.
There you go. All right. I love it. Good deal. Very cool. I think that's the main ones, and we're just about ready to wrap up here. There's two things I want to mention. Just as I closed that, I saw Matt Bloomquist, which I was just about to mention. Matt, you got a funny one. Okay, so as we wrap up here, a couple things I want to mention real fast. Matt, who I just mentioned, that's his face right there. Matt is a teacher in Illinois who teaches a trades class to high school students. He's at build_learn_teach on Instagram. And his students are building an entire house start to finish with some help from some trade contractors and some friends of ours from Build Show Network. And they are in need of some additional help and support for their program. Just recently, we put a call for donations through this Skip Lunch program or Skip Lunch Challenge, #SkipLunch. And, I donated a couple bucks. I'm sure Doug did. A bunch of people did. And all of a sudden, in like a week, they had the $5,000 they needed to get the cargo trailer to build out for a tool storage for the trades program. I can't remember the exact thing. But my point is, check this out. Go to Instagram and look up Build, Learn, Teach and consider donating your lunch money and packing your lunch one day. Because literally enough people gave their $10 lunch money to be able to tangibly support a trades program that's helping high schoolers make a decision to go into the trades. And I can't go on enough about how important that is. The other thing I wanted to tell you was, if you go to that next slide for me, Mercedes, is if you're a pro watching this, no matter if this is live or if you're watching this pre-recorded, Sashco did something really cool for us. We said, hey, would you give us a discount code or would you do something for our audience? And they said, we'll do you one better. We'll send your pros a free pack of our products. So go to Sashco.com/BSN. Sashco.com/BSN and enter your info. They will literally send you a sample kit with 7 tubes of their products. And these are products that range in cost from maybe $6 to $10. So we're talking about between shipping and the products, this is like a $60, $70, $80 package they're sending you. That's a big deal. It's really kind of them. And honestly, for me, it took me using Moreflex once to go, oh crap, this is awesome. Why didn't I know about this? And so that's what they're doing for y'all as well. And Dougie, we'll give you a sample back before you leave too. Just kidding. He already has it.
I will take two.
So go there. This is only if you're a pro. If you're a homeowner watching this, I'm sure you could lie, but don't. Be honest with these guys. This is a big deal. They're going to spend I'm sure many thousands of dollars sending these sample packs out. Big thanks to Sashco for sponsoring. Big thanks to you guys for being here. Doug, you're awesome.
My pleasure.
What is your Instagram handle again,
It
Doug?
is Design Build Doug.
Design Build Doug, and we just published a great video yesterday together on my YouTube channel, so go check that out, where he was talking about Magic Plan, and he and his wife are a design build powerhouse team, ESS Design Build here in Austin. He gave 5 great tips on kitchen design, which I am no expert on, and Doug and his wife killed it, so go check out that video. In the meantime, guys, follow us on Twitter or Instagram. Otherwise, we'll see you next time on the Build Show. Yes!
Awesome.
Nice job, dude. That was great.
Awesome.
Thanks for
Good
having
work,
me, man.
dude.
Yeah.